Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody, for the week of November 4th. I'm Ryan Miller, and it was really sneaky. It's Matt Amber.
Run. It's my favorite. I love how he says that. That whole,
I love how he says a lot of things in this week's movie on Book Club for Movies, where we watch one movie a week. We talk about it. You should do the same. And then contact us at podcast@bookclubformovies.com or Facebook or Twitter, however you want to do it. This week, we like a lot of the things that Robert Carlyle says in Ravenous.
I like it. He says things with his mouth a lot.
Oh, boy, he doesn't just say things with the mouth. He probably eats a few mouths.
He does. He does.
Not to spoil it. But you're going to do a synopsis that might very well do that anyway.
He eats the meat well before it spoils. Here's your book club for movies synopsis for Ravenous. It's going to be Ravenous. It's going to come at you in an hour and 41 minutes. Written by Ted Griffin, directed by Antonia Bird, by the way.
Okay.
Starring Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, David Arquette, Jeremy Davies, Jeffrey Jones, and Dum Dum Dugan. I can never remember Neil McDonough. I love that guy. He's really great. He has the piercing blue eyes.
He does.
He does. Here's your book club movies.
Was that part of the synopsis? It
yes.
Should be.
Here's your book club for movies synopsis for Ravenous. When a number of regiment soldiers go missing from an already remote outpost, the army sends Captain John Boyd to investigate. Boyd begins to unravel a tale about cannibalism being committed by a rogue army colonel. You think he's got the stomach for what's coming?
Yeah, he's got it. He's got them all. Everybody's got him.
I like how at the beginning of this
stomachs.
movie, like for the first, I think it was 20-some minutes, Guy Pearce does not say a word.
He doesn't. And it's because he's a little shell-shocked. Okay. You're going to make me start with normal stuff instead of this is maybe the weirdest movie you've ever recommended.
Really?
For one simple reason.
The music?
Yeah, okay. I'm glad at least you pulled that out because
it's great.
Looking at like Wikipedia and IMDb, nobody appears to mention the music.
It is
other than the music is good, or said there was an award. I think the guy who did it got an award for it or something.
It is fantastic. That music is awesome for this movie.
I'll take your word for that because what it is from a completely different movie entirely.
And I love it. It's so perfect, and that's why, because the movie is so, like, you change the music and this movie becomes a completely different, more serious horror movie.
It does, but I think...
And I like that it's not. I like that there's a dark comedy to the whole thing, and the fact that the music is kind of, it plods along. It's lots of like plucky bows, and
it's ridiculous. It's just there's like a calliope in there probably.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely, I think there's a slide whistle at one point.
It's weird, man.
It's great.
And I like weird for weird. I am with you. I think that definitely makes this movie unique. But I think the question I kept asking myself was, is this a better movie? Everybody hates this movie, right? Am I like this can't have reviewed.
This is a super popular. People love this movie.
What? Really?
Oh, yeah.
But like a cult movie, or this thing made money at the box office?
I don't think movies make money at the box office like this, but it's definitely a movie that did well on.
Fair enough.
It did very well on. Like it's not an unknown movie by any means.
Okay. Except for me, but that's par for the course, it seems. You never, always pull one out of your yes.
You never travel in the circles that I'm in, so the movies that I watch are probably going to be a little more obscure for you.
This is why you're in charge of Octoberween.
That's the only job I should take.
I at best come up with scary stories to tell in the dark, and you're like, I think Ravenous. I'm like, okay. Definitely more to talk about here with Ravenous, even though I'll mention I did watch that also this week, so we'll have a great just comparison discussion.
All right.
Is Ravenous a better movie if it takes itself more seriously, if it loses the goofy music?
I don't know. I don't personally want to know. I don't think I think the music complements the movie for exactly what it is.
It complements the goal of the movie to be satire. I agree with that completely. Like, you can't listen or watch this thing and not think, oh, they're obviously poking fun at something. They're saying more than just cannibalism is bad or even good or whatever they would be saying with that. I just feel like there is so very little of the parody in anything else. Maybe this is, in fact, it's a reason in a way to do the music this way, because if they had done it serious, maybe there would have been more question. Maybe there would have been more uproar. You know, maybe this would have been the movie that glorifies cannibalism and is, you know, a mark on society as a whole. I don't know.
It should have been.
Okay. Maybe the question doesn't have an answer. It does.
No,
you don't think it would be? I kind of think maybe it would have been a better movie.
Right, but even you're not sure. I'm
not sure because it's just so wild and nuts. Because yes, this thing exists and they did do it, and you're like, what in the world? Like at time, like they're walking out the door. Again, there's cannibalism everywhere. To like, is it they're searching for the company that's probably being eaten by a cannibal that was left in a cave, according to Robert Carlyle, who later, we're going to spoil this movie, turns out to have been the major bad cannibal the whole time. As they're going out the door to search for cannibalism, I swear it's like, oh, Susanna.
Yeah.
Later on, it could have been Yakety Sax. It might have well have been. And this is after people are definitely being eaten.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's plenty of gore. And then at one point, I didn't recognize the song, but it was probably Mark Mothersbaugh.
Oh, yeah, I think that wouldn't surprise me.
All I could be sure of. So, yes, it's wild, but I think the rest of it is done competently enough. Like, it's disturbing. The subject matter is pointed and does have a reason, I believe. But I think in a way that if it had been more serious about itself or even just more ambiguous in that, it could have been better, I guess. I don't know.
I think that is a very, very different movie, and I don't think
it is.
I don't think there's any amount of music that turns this into the movie you want it to be, because I don't think that movie is in this movie. I think it's a very different script with this concept.
Okay.
I mean, you'd have to me, you have to take out some characters. You have to get rid of Jeffrey Jones, because I think he, in general, even at the beginning, the moment you meet him,
a lot of people would argue to get rid of Jeffrey Jones.
Well, sure, but Jeffrey Jones and David Arquette, you know, which again, the same argument there, has to go. You're at that. I mean, at the point where it's like you. I don't know what that movie is. I just don't see it. I just know that characters have to be removed. You have to remove. Like, for that movie, you can't have Robert Carlyle's the wry humor from him. You can't.
I think in a way, I'm arguing for music that's more background than foreground, which this stuff is foreground. I don't think that you need to remove any of those things. Like what's his face? Arquette's barely in the movie enough anyway.
No,
at one point he plays chess, and it's not like anybody's going to believe that as is.
He was a champion, man. He's a WCW champion. So
Robert Carlyle definitely has all of the lines that are tongue in cheek. Maybe Guy Pearce has a few.
I mean, he only has a few lines.
Jeffrey Jones, I think, okay, that maybe, yes, he definitely, if anybody's winking at the camera, he might be. But I don't think any of them really do that enough to the point where, like, that could be where all of the satire comes from. That could be enough to be like, okay, yeah, I get, or it would give the filmmakers an argument, you know, for the people that did come up and be like, this glorifies cannibalism and you guys are evil people. They could have been like, it's a joke. This is satire. Look at these things, obviously. I mean, any good filmmaker wouldn't do that on the defensive still, but I think that would be enough.
That's fine. In terms of the music, did you ever consider that the music is representative and why it's in the foreground? It's representative of what's going on in Guy Pearce's head, because he's got PTSD. He is shell-shocked. He's having to deal with the cannibalism thing. It's happening again to him. He's having to deal with it twice, and everything in his head is jumbled mess that doesn't sound like normal.
I would say no, because I don't get the feeling that he's jumbled in that way. Like, he's conflicted. Like, one of the main storylines is Guy Pearce is shell-shocked from being... In fact, the beginning of the film is disturbing from the get without any cannibalism. Like, you've got Guy Pearce sitting down at what appears to be a normal victory dinner of sorts. Oh, this takes place, and this is important, during the Mexican-American War, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. 19th century.
And they're all sitting down at this victory, and they're all just eating steaks, but it's cut really not sloppily. The sounds are sloppy, and it's bloody meat and stuff like that. So it becomes very disturbing from the open, and he is portrayed as a disturbed, and not disturbed like Robert Carlyle. He's disturbed by what he's seen. I think he kind of deserted. Not really. He gave everybody
up.
Was dead around him, so he pretended to be dead, so the enemy passed over him.
He laid down during the battle. Everybody was fighting, and he was watching people get killed, and he just laid down, and people kept screaming for him to come help them, and he just laid there. And then as the war is over, the Mexicans are walking around cleaning up the bodies.
That's right.
He plays dead. They put him at the bottom of a stack of bodies, and we find out that he ended up drinking, where he was set, there was just blood pouring into his mouth, and he couldn't do anything about it. And suddenly he has the ability to climb out from underneath a huge stack of bodies and then break a whole bunch of Mexican guards' necks so that they could capture the outpost back.
And he gets an award for it, and they're like, how did you get behind enemy lines? And the secret being that he got there by playing dead and not fighting, essentially. Yeah. So he is disturbed by what he's seen and what he's done, but not in a way that I hear like Calliopes in the background. In the way that I hear silence, which is how he is for the large portion of the movie, not just the beginning. Yeah, not a lot of words come out of him at all.
He's dialogue light.
But at one point, the struggle becomes between being a cannibal and not. He finds himself... Okay, so yes, Robert Carlyle, they find him, and he's like, oh, this other guy was a cannibal. We need to go rescue them. And then they go to rescue, and it turns out Robert Carlyle was the cannibal the whole time. He ends up killing everybody, and... Guy Pearce gets away and ends up hiding. Oh, Guy Pearce gets away with Neil McDonough and ends up hiding with those piercing blue eyes under some pine leaves or something like that.
After he's been killed, by the way, Neil McDonough is dead.
He rolled down the hill. They fell off the same cliff, except Guy Pearce survived.
Well, because Guy Pearce jumped on his own accord, whereas Neil McDonough got a knife in his sternum.
Thank you. I've, to be honest, watched this last week when I thought we were going to do it last week, and then didn't finish it until last night. So, little disjointed.
I gotcha.
Not in the way that many of the characters in this film are disjointed, but it's still, I hear Calliope music, I think is what it is.
There it is.
So, in any event, Guy Pearce finds himself laying with those piercing blue eyes that he then devours, it seems, at some point.
Yes, he does.
Because he would have died otherwise, I guess. Even though they probably could have made a better case, I feel like. Like he went to the cannibalism a little fast, maybe. I don't know. I know they wanted to get him there, but
he's got to heal up. He's got a long way to go back, and if he's going to have any way to fight, what's his name, Robert Carlyle, he's got to have a little bit of energy.
Okay.
Power up.
I like how you're...
Think of Neil McDonough as like a mushroom from Super Mario.
I'm going to pretend like you're playing devil's advocate and not just like, sometimes you got to eat people.
In this case, sometimes you do.
Again.
Like if you know... Look, I'm not going to lie. If I'm in that situation and I know I'm going to gain that person's essence, yeah, I'm going to just chow down.
Okay, that would definitely make the difference. I don't know if the movie makes... that point so early on, but yes, eventually we realize that you do gain some sort of essence from the cannibalism and strength and healing powers. But eventually that struggle within Guy Pearce becomes, will I give myself into the hunger now or not? And to answer your question, do I think the music is representative of even that struggle? No, I don't think so. I wouldn't think so. I'm not obviously saying that's not an argument, or
I don't know. It sounded good, so I pulled it out of my butt.
All right. That's where all the good shows come from.
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe it. I just thought it was an interesting. It's a thought exercise.
Okay, so this far we've had that exercise. We know that you think the music stays and you don't even want to know if it's a better movie without it or with different music. Where do we go from here?
I don't know. Let's just finish the movie.
He ends up eating people, and
they get caught in a bear trap. The end.
And if that didn't make sense, okay. Let's go down my notes here. Let's see. 3/4 were about music, and the rest is about how that music stops about midway through Act 3, and it is basically Guy Pearce versus Robert Carlyle, and he has decided to eat, but now at this point he's garnered that strength and uses it to defeat Robert Carlyle. So to me, that's kind of a classic tale that you'll hear in some areas. It's if I could relate it to a comic book, it's like Blade, right? Like, he's got the vampirism, but he uses it for good.
Sure.
So Guy Pearce, being the Blade of this movie, then uses those newfound powers to defeat Robert Carlyle. Again, I'm sure I would love to go down that mythology rabbit hole and talk about that and see where that comes from and what it means and all that stuff. Beyond the scope of my notes.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have anything.
If you're interested in learning more about it, learn about the Wendigo.
It's in my notes too.
Well, that's what they referred to Robert Carlyle.
Oh, do they mention it by name in the movie? That's right, they do, don't they?
Wendigo.
That's right.
They just don't say Wendigo.
And this actually does cross over with Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which is one of those stories.
Oh, is that actually in there?
Yep. It totally is.
I can't wait to talk about that particular, because I want that to be probably something that's not in the movie.
So that's interesting, but we'll carry on that discussion with a movie that maybe, actually no, it's not better.
It's different.
Whatever. We'll carry on that discussion.
Yeah.
It's different. There you go. Okay, maybe where I really, really did like Ravenous, though, is where it partly comes together at the end with the return of the higher-ups. And there's this stew that's been boiling. It contains people, and it's the stew, I think, that Jeffrey Jones tries to feed the Guy Pearce for a while, and he rejects it until he doesn't. Again, really gross, just all the eating scenes and the close-ups on the food.
Stew. It's
super disturbing. The higher-ups come back, and I forget the name of the actor. You don't.
Jeffrey Jones?
No, John Spencer. General Slauson.
Yes, John Spencer. That guy.
I guess it was his last movie before going to the West Wing to retire.
R.I.P.
But they come back, and he just starts lapping up that soup like nobody's business. He has no idea about the whole thing, and they're largely absent from the entire movie. But I think where that fits is also why this takes place where it does. And if I can go down a rabbit hole with Call of Duty, I can go down a rabbit hole with Ravenous, I think is how it works again.
I love it.
Check out this week's show, 0 Hit Points. The Mexican-American War is just this nakedly imperialistic conflict. One of the worst, I think, where basically they just decided they wanted that land, so they started a war for it. And there's imagined reasons just everywhere. And if anybody still espouses them, they're garbage. Like, it's just so obvious. And this war being that, there's another line in the movie. There's a few more that I'll mention. But the one that Robert Carlyle comes out with, it might be third act break. It's fairly late, but it's right as they're pitted against each other. And Robert Carlyle's still trying to turn Guy Pearce, and he eventually can't. But he says, quote, "We just need a home. And this country is seeking to be whole, stretching out its arms and consuming all it can, and we merely follow." Right? A more pointed statement at a conflict like the Mexican-American War, there may not be. It certainly is not in this movie. So I like that. I like a movie that's understood why it is. And I think Ravenous definitely gets that, even though it gets caught up in a lot of the gross. I feel like, there's some scenes in there that obviously are committed to that more than this idea of consumption or Americans' view of consumption. But as a whole, especially when at the end those higher ups show up, the ones that perpetrated this war or have a greater part in perpetrating it, that are leading the charge, so to speak, in some aspects, just lapping it up because they don't care or don't know. Pretty good.
Pretty good. Pretty good. In general, I mean, you mentioned the you keep mentioning the eating stuff, and I think the Foley work in this movie is great. The sound,
it's gross.
The sounds are so good, and I mean, I think this is something else that will go underappreciated here is the look of the movie. Like, the costuming is fantastic. It's got some really gorgeous cinematic shots, like some really beautiful geography type stuff,
Sure, yeah.
Landscape stuff, and
It contrasts nicely with just about everything else.
it does. It is. You get these beautiful countrysides filled with skeletons and people eating internal organs. It's pretty great. I think the filmmaking in general is really solid with the movie, and you gotta. I think Guy Pearce and Robert Carlyle not only play off each other so well. Guy Pearce has such little dialogue to deal with, and he gets across everything he needs to in really wonderful ways. Like, he looks beaten up the entire movie and just tired, and just, come on, man, please stop. And Robert Carlyle, like, once he kind of kicks into being the cannibal, just becomes almost to a point where for at least some people, you kind of root for him. You're like, okay, I kind of want to see him win a little bit, because he's just so charismatic, and he's just eating people. It's a delicious form of population control.
At least they ate Jeffrey Jones, right?
They did. Yes, they did.
Okay.
You got to get the power of the Jones.
You gotta look on the bright side. Yeah, well, what's that power?
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
Pederast. 8-year-olds, dude.
Nope. We're going to talk about a gross movie instead, Matt.
Okay.
So you like Ravenous, do you?
I think it's a good flick.
It's fine. It's I don't know if I'll rewatch it. I don't know, but maybe not for the fact that it's a bad movie or anything. I just don't. You know what I would do? The game I think this is most like, and maybe it's just too obvious of a comparison, is Dead Rising. Doesn't have the music, but has the seriousness about it. Like, that story is definitely, like, nobody's winking at the camera in that story at all. But throughout the fabric of the game, you're like putting on ladies' clothes, and you're doing all this wacky stuff. So that very much also points at consumption. I mean, the whole, this is a thread that runs through many movies like this, even many horror movies even. So it's not necessarily new in that aspect, but it's something that I love to see done well, because I believe it, like, there's a lot of consuming that goes on in our culture that's gross. So
sure.
Ravenous.
I see people eat liver and I think it's awful.
And you're talking about, like, not human liver too.
No, I'm talking about, like, the concept of you're going to eat the filter. You're eating filter. That's what it is. So
you're eating a cigarette filter.
That's right. Or booze filter, which, I mean, you'd want it to be
right.
a little soaked, but it's just, they're not going to get drunk from it. It's not like it's not a rum ham.
They're just hams, Marge. 39 stars
out of 43.
Okay, I feel like maybe we just choose movies that sit at about that level, but I feel like someday if we go back and average out all the actual scores,
there'll be about
probably not a huge amount of deviation.
Between a 2 and a 3 is my guess, with the outlier 5s. We haven't really had any 1s yet, I don't think. Well, maybe we had 1 or 2 for you.
What about?
There was something we watched that you did not like.
I'm thinking about the one you didn't like. The freaking Spielberg one, for gosh sake.
Oh, Ready Player One.
Ready Player One, right.
That's a terrible movie.
I don't remember how many stars they gave it. It's probably more than 1, but
it was probably garbage.
I have to ask you about Dr. Sleep at some point. Are you going to see that?
I want to, yes. I have not read that book, though, so I kind of want to do that, too. But
speaking of Ready Player One.
Ooh.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. So what's our movie next week going to be?
Oh, yeah, we haven't talked about that.
No, we didn't.
It's not Octoberween anymore, so.
So we can't do any.
Okay, tell you what. You did Octoberween.
I did.
I think you.
Blame me.
I think those were all your ideas, weren't they?
You know, they usually they probably were.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Your
with
track record remains intact, so either way.
Well, 100 out of 100 or something.
So speaking of Ready Player One, maybe, which I believe I chose.
Oh, please.
I'll choose one for you this
Please
week.
tell me it's another video game movie. Please tell me it's Double Dragon. Double Dragon. Double Dragon.
It's not. It's not technically. It might be. I don't know that much about it, and could be wrong again.
You could be right though, Billy Joel.
And you know what? You can veto this. I'll give you a veto on this because this might be lots of controversy going on. This might be a controversial choice. Alita Battle Angel.
Oh no, I'm in. I'm super.
Okay,
I'm
right,
super
cool.
super in. Funny enough, I was just telling Beth the other night. We were watching a movie by chance, and I was looking
What?
at. I know, and I was looking at stuff that I still have to go through and I haven't watched, and I had that, and I went, I'm super amped to watch that movie. I've been wanting to watch that since it came out.
Me too.
So, yeah, I love it. Alita Battle Angel
nice.
next week.
Cool. Not speaking of Ready Player One, let's hope.
Yeah, let's get away from that garbo. Alita is not streaming anywhere. You can find it on Amazon Prime, but it is not free streaming. It's not on Prime Video. You have to pay dollars for it.
So it's not that bad that it's free somewhere yet.
Correct.
That's good.
Correct.
Okay.
Netflix hasn't paid for it yet. So
All right. But they're launching a 5-episode miniseries of it, I'm sure. I haven't checked.
That's correct. It's set for 3 seasons. It'll be canceled after 1.5.
And they'll remove it 1 year later.
That's right.
Why did they remove their originals ever? I don't
get it.
So that's next week.
That's next week.
Anything else you want to talk about this week?
Oh yeah, I've got stuff for the rest of the show.
Okay, the rest of the show.
Let's do
we
that.
We titled it.
Yeah, we've got it. I got a couple things here. How do you feel about, say, Vincent Price?
Oh, dang. I tried to watch that with you, and I didn't.
So
sorry.
we watched a couple. Which one did I tell you to watch?
I couldn't find a good copy. House of Wax? Is that where you're going?
House of Wax, yes.
Okay.
We watched that, and we watched House of Usher. Man.
I joked around about watching the Paris Hilton one, which I can find easily enough.
It's fine. It's nothing like this one, but it's an entertaining movie, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's fine. House of Wax, though, is just it's just a masterpiece, man. It's such a wonderful movie, and Beth and I hadn't watched any of these older Vincent Price movies in a long time, and that's kind of what we wanted to do for Halloween. So that's what we did. We watched that and House of Usher, and just wonderful movies. You gotta love Vincent Price. I think that if you enjoy horror movies, you really need to go back and watch Vincent Price. He's fantastic.
He's a master, unmatched even.
I don't know how you didn't find it. I found a good copy of it. It's not 1080, but
it's
because you're.
Oh, maybe that's my problem. Yeah, I was going for like a remaster.
Yeah,
there's got to be a Criterion out there of something.
You'd be very wrong.
Oh.
There's no Criterion for that. I don't think so. I don't know that any of the Vincent Price, the old ones outside of like The Fly, are Criterion.
What?
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought everybody respected him as much as we do.
Yeah, well, everybody is dumb. So there's that. So, and then speaking of Halloween, while not on Halloween, but the Friday before Halloween, Joe Bob did another marathon on Shudder, the Halloween Hootenanny. And he did a little on the nose this year, but he has never done a Monster Vision or show on Halloween. So he showed
the movie Halloween.
Correct.
He's done plenty on the day Halloween.
Well, I can't speak for that. I don't know the guy.
Okay, can't either.
He might be asleep. I don't know what he does. The original Halloween films, Halloween's 1, 2, and 4.
Dude, what? Joe Bob doesn't sleep on Halloween. Are you kidding? He's probably like, find that guy. I want to know what he is doing on Halloween. It's got to be crazy.
He's probably drunk on Halloween, honestly.
Well, still.
I'm going to drink my Lone Star beer and sit here in my recliner and watch soap opera.
Fair. That's okay. He did. I'm sorry.
Halloween's 1, 2, and 4.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Wait, he skipped Season of the Witch? Again, how do I know these?
It's not that he skipped it so much as Shudder doesn't have the license for it. And
Oh.
he has been, so it's just kind of a funny thing between him and Darcy, the mail girl, and a whole hell of a lot of people on Twitter. He does not like that movie, and he thinks it's crappy and bad.
Oh.
And Darcy, and along with many other people, including myself, love that movie because Tom Atkins rules, and it's a cool movie. So Carpenter's original idea was he never wanted to make a sequel, but they basically gave him a dump truck of money, so he did. And then they wanted to do another one, and his whole concept at that point was, we'll do more Halloween movies. They're just going to be totally different. We're not going to use Michael Myers, and Michael Myers became
So 1, 2, and 4 follow.
Right, 1, 2, and 4. 4 is Michael Myers Returns. Essentially, it's
Okay.
it's Michael the return of Michael Myers. It was fun. I mean, I love his stuff, and he's always entertaining. He always provides information that I didn't know. And
Yeah, I was gonna say, any cool tidbits or whatever.
there are, but I honestly, like, it's little things that I could not recite to you. They're just things where I'm sitting there watching, going, "Oh, that's super novel." Like, I had no idea that's how they did that, or whatever.
But where did the mask come from?
Came
I'm just baiting you now.
It came
I'm
from the Halloween store. I actually had to have a conversation with Beth about that. She actually asked about that. We were watching it. She walked away. She hadn't seen the original in a while. She walked away. She comes back and she's like, "Okay, here's a question. Where did he get the mask?" And I go, "Yeah, you remember earlier on when they were smoking a joint in the car, and then they found Cop Dad and a shop had been broken into, and that's where he got the mask."
Star Trek convention down the street.
Oh yeah. Basically that was it. Yeah, she was like, "Oh, so it was a Star Trek convention." Got it. Yeah. It was fun.
It's Shatner, right? I'm not
Yeah,
confusing this with
It is. It's a bleach Shatner mask. I will say I love 1 and 2. I think they're fantastic. 2 is not as good as 1. 1 is a masterpiece, a true masterpiece. 2 is fun. 4 I have a lot of sentiment for, because when I was very small and that movie came out, there was a skywriter that wrote, like, it was really close to our house in Burbank. And
I was going to say, is this when you were in Burbank?
yeah, and it wrote, "Go see Halloween 4." So I went into my house. I went, "Hey, Dad, can we go see Halloween 4?" And he goes, "All right." And it's totally that Simpsons thing, where there's 3 different levels. There's subliminal, liminal, and superliminal. And Lenny's walking outside, and he says, "What's superliminal?" And the recruiter looks out the window and he goes, "Hey, you, join the Navy!" And Lenny just goes, "Okay." "Go see Halloween 4. Okay.
Surprised we got away with 2 Simpsons references only.
Solid
on the show.
so far.
So far, it's not over yet.
But it has one of my favorite kills in all of Halloween, because I just think it's so ridiculous. And it's at the very beginning of the movie that, okay, how are we going to get a now dead, blown up Michael Myers back into the game? What do we do? Okay, well, we got to take him from a mental hospital and get him onto the streets, because he's in the hospital. So, like, just like the first movie, driving him somewhere, everything falls apart. In the process of trying to get him from they get him into the ambulance, and as soon as they get into the ambulance, it's like they didn't even get away. They show the thing pull away from the hospital, but the amount of time it takes for him to start killing them, they are definitely they've gotten down a driveway. They're definitely at the bottom of the driveway. Like, you are not missing a massive situation occurring here. But he grabs this one dude's head and he starts slamming it into the cabinet behind him. And then he takes his thumb and jams it into his forehead. And that kills him, because he's like touching his brain.
I can imagine.
And the effect on it is just so funny, because it's just... I don't even know how to explain it. It's this weird, like, mound around his thumb that's like the guy was furrowing his brow, and all of that went into, like, I don't know. It was weird. I like that movie though. It's fun.
Okay.
It's a fun movie. I like it.
Okay. All right. Okay. I believe you.
But the other movie that I actually want to talk to you about that I think is pretty interesting is a documentary I found on Hulu called Batman and Bill.
Oh, watched it.
Did you?
Did we not talk about it?
I do not ever recall hearing you mention anything about this movie.
Doesn't mean we didn't talk about it.
That's true.
But now I have to look it up.
Yeah, no, that was a really great
It's cool.
little thing. I had some issues with it. In particular, I think that while I absolutely 100% agree Bill Finger should be on everything that has to do with Batman, I think he should be always credited.
Which so far he is. Like, that's been one of the fun things is after watching that, I think ever since Batman versus Superman, in fact, like you'll always see Bill Finger's name now after movies and stuff.
I think you're right, actually. And I think I'd have to pull one of the books out, but I think it's listed I think DC is putting it in the comics as well.
Cool. Your issue, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, so one of the things that I kind of ran into with this that was it kind of bugs me is that the granddaughter clearly jumped in on this as a fame thing. And she keeps saying, it's about him. It's about his legacy. I don't necessarily think she's wrong and she's lying about that. I think it is to an extent. But she at one point says, it was a black cloud hanging over my life. Really? Are you like, really?
I don't remember.
That was
actually,
a black
so
cloud hanging over your life, causing you stress and anxiety. That your grandfather, who I get it, you knew you had a relationship with, hasn't been credited. Like, that's been over your head for your life.
It would have been nice to get a little, like, every time I read a Batman comic, like, you don't, if I remember, you don't get a lot of her talking about. No. You don't get a sense that she's a big comic book fan. And that's why it's been a big cloud, like every time I read a comic or something.
She doesn't. Again, she comes off as she's doing the right thing, but for the wrong reasons, I think. Like, she seems like she's doing it selfishly because it does get her things like, you know what? She started going to conventions. People get her autograph, which means she's making money.
Right.
And I mean, that's fine. Good for her. Take nothing away from capitalism, but it just comes off disingenuous. And it happens towards the end of the movie too, when they announce that he is finally going to be credited for the first time in Batman versus Superman. And like, I feel like the guy who was spending the time actually trying to get this done cared legitimately significantly more than the granddaughter.
Oh, yeah, I remember thinking that.
And that guy was like, and I mean, that's the crux of the film is this one guy who's been going around.
Isn't he the filmmaker too? Right?
I think so. I don't
so.
know if he is or not. Actually, you know what?
Sorry, I should stop talking about it. It's been too long since I've seen it.
It was directed by two people, Don Argot, Sheena M. Jace, and I think his name was Thomas Andre. I don't know. Anyways, this guy has been super into Batman, and he was traveling the country explaining who Bill Finger was to people, and that Bill Finger actually not only co-created Batman, but kind of put more into Batman as we know him in terms of the look, the rogues gallery, than maybe Bob Kane did.
It paints Bob Kane as kind of who's the Thomas Edison
as a hanger-on. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And like,
it good at stealing ideas and capitalizing, and not without his own merits or creativity.
Right.
But,
It's Stan Lee, same thing.
Who's Bill Fingers to John Kirby? Is that the
Jack Kirby?
Jack Kirby. Thank you. People, I call him John.
Johnny Jack, Jackie John.
Yep, Jack John. Whatever. Depends on
John
level
Jackson.
of familiarity.
Yeah, Jack Johnson.
Yeah, I call him Jack Johnson.
Jim.
Like, hey, thanks.
Jim
You
Jalabim
made some great
Bamba.
music. You should get more credit.
Yeah, but essentially, this guy wants to make it public knowledge that Bill Finger co-created Batman with Bob Kane, and Bob Kane has been the sole creator listed in everything since Batman's inception.
Yeah.
And
hi everybody, I'm Bob Kane. Right.
That's it. You got it. It was an interesting documentary. It's on Hulu. If you like Batman and if you're not familiar with the Bill Finger story, check it out. It's got some ups and downs.
It's good. It's a good story.
It's a good story. And then
my interruption.
You asked me a question on the Zero Hit Point show that I'm going to answer here, which is you asked me if I had watched Watchmen.
Oh, yes.
The TV program.
TV show.
And Here's what I will say. I did.
Okay. Oh.
And yeah, I'm in on that.
You're in?
To like Beth and we waited because she's going out of town this week. We actually waited last week and then on Sunday, and we're gonna knock out 2 episodes this week so that when she comes back, we're gonna be like right in. And yeah, no, we're both super into it. It is gorgeous for one. It definitely has captured. There's that feeling. They definitely captured it. And come on, man, Don Johnson.
Who does he play? I don't know.
None of the people in the show at this point are characters you know. They're all. This is
Night Owl's in jail. I've read up on some of it. The girl is it's Silk Spectre,
Sister,
though, right? She's the main.
No, she's not. Silk Spectre has not shown up at all. The main is Lady Midnight, I think is her name. Sister Midnight.
Maybe I'm okay. What I have read, I think, is from the 2nd episode.
Maybe
so there might be.
I'm sure. I know that Night Owl, and I know that Vite shows up, and I'm 99% sure that Jeremy Irons is Vite. But yeah, it's cool. I really liked it. It's a follow-up to the Gibbons Moore story, but it takes place many years later. So they're not tacking things on. They're not they're not doing prequels to what happened. Where did Rorschach go? No, this is all post all of that. And number one, I think that's a really smart decision.
Oh yeah.
And number
absolutely.
2, the brilliance in it is being able to take a character like Rorschach, who to an extent he had an agenda, but he was definitely the anti-hero. He was doing it for himself, what he thought was right. And
I mean, nobody was perfect in that thing, but yeah,
no,
Rorschach
I mean,
was,
and exactly.
Jackie Earle Haley. That's all I was going to say.
And he was amazing.
Dead in the TV show, I think. Well, dead by the end of
he's definitely dead in the TV show.
Spoilers.
The show is a sequel, as I mentioned, and it takes place many years later.
Sorry.
He is definitely no longer even a splotch in the Antarctic. He has been, yes.
Nice.
But it's cool. It's really good. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it. So.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious. I had heard from a lot of people that if you get over all of the garbage about it's not the thing and the thing and the things,
yeah,
it's
which
actually
is
not bad.
Yeah, which is because those are people that are infantile, and you're ruining
good
my
to have
Watchmen.
some first-hand corroboration there. Then
you're ruining my Watchmen. Okay, no, they're not. They've done nothing with your Watchmen. They're
Yeah,
literally
shut up,
doing nothing with your Watchmen. Yeah, I know exactly.
Actually, that wouldn't be his argument. His argument would be burn it all and. How did you get in here?
Right. I did think it's funny that in the wake of this coming out that his
Alan Moore,
his daughter came out and defended Dave Gibbons and said she gets kind of annoyed when they refer to it as Alan Moore's Watchmen, when that was an incredibly collaborative thing.
Oh yeah. He's the Bill Finger of lots of Bill Fingers.
Yeah, Freddie got fingered once.
Jackie Earle Haley played Freddie.
Jackal Earle Haley is what he goes by during Halloween.
And so it all comes back around.
And
okay,
I'm done.
Oh, here's some things.
Okay.
I did watch Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the latest movie.
Yes. Tell me about the Wendigo. Did they show the bloody stumps? They don't.
So. If they had, you might not be glad they did.
Oh, because it was just that bad looking.
No, I mean, okay. The good is that this movie also, much like Ravenous, knows what it is. There are a few good lines in there. Stories can't hurt you, say the people that will die very soon, because they can, because stories and stuff.
They're scary.
It has they are, and you tell them in the dark. It has a theme. It knows stories are important. It knows that figures into it. Somebody somewhere got it. The execution didn't really, unfortunately. Yeah, it stinks. There are some legitimately disturbing things in the movie. I think Guillermo del Toro influence is in and around there somewhere. Some of the creatures are great in a few different ways. And I honestly don't mind the connective premise so much. So It's not an anthology movie, because any movie about this book would essentially be that.
Which is what it probably should have been, honestly.
Maybe. This, I don't mind the premise, though. It's that there was a girl who wrote stories, and that girl is back as a ghost and kind of the unseen force that's causing all these stories to happen to people because she is filled with rage about what happened to her in life. So the vengeful spirit thing.
Sure.
And they use that as an excuse to tell some of these stories from the book. I don't mind that connective tissue so much, except that the book is not the book. Like, I think the movie honestly might have been better if it was literally the book. Like, put the book in the film. Put the book Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark in the movie.
Right.
But they make it a book written by this girl. And then not only that, they make the stories. They take actual names and they're like, oh, this is this story from the book. And none of them are the same. They've all been changed within the movie.
I know that there were a couple things I saw immediately, and it was like, oh, that's a bummer. The spider one, like, how you put what she's like in school or a dance or something, right?
Yep.
Like, that's so dumb.
They changed them to make sense within that story.
So
it's told within the 60s. It's a group of kids, and to make the stories from the book Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark make sense, they make it happen to the characters in that film, so they necessarily have to change some things. Yeah. It stinks, and there's no talk about why they're having to change it. Like, maybe they exist already and they're having to be adapted since these stories are from time immemorial. Something like that would have been cool. Speaks to the eternity of stories and
sure.
and that theme or something like that. But it's not. They just they change. I get that I am the guy now that's like, the movie doesn't follow the book exactly, and I have spoken out even myself against that many times.
Yeah. No, I get that.
And I think had this movie been able to stand on its own, I would have been more forgiving of that. But in a movie that's about stories, like, I'm going through this book with my kids right now. It's part of the reason I thought maybe we could do a show on it.
Yeah, I know.
Is when I saw the movie was coming along, I bought the book. I was like, oh yeah, I love this growing up. And now I read my kids a scary story or two every night before bed type thing, like in the dark with a flashlight even, it's been super fun.
Yeah.
But also what you don't remember from those books, because largely when you're a kid, especially me, I don't think I had this book. My parents wouldn't have bought it for me. So a lot of the times I'm getting these stories second, third, fourth, like 20th hand from kids that are telling it on the playground, right? Like Bloody Mary, like sure. I knew about that story all the way up and through high school, but I didn't know that it kind of started. Like, it's the game of telephone that kids play to some extent. There were two things that I have found out filtered down to me in elementary school that I didn't know where they were from. One of them's this book, and the other one's Tango and Cash. So this book,
everything is FUBAR.
What you don't know about it is that it actually begins with a lot of reverence for stories. Like, there's a lot from the author Alvin Schwartz, I think, right?
Correct.
Before and after that, where he talks about where he collected these stories, where these stories have roots and why sometimes. And it's all tied together more often than not with cool tidbits about storytelling itself and collecting stories. Like, some of the stories even don't have endings. They're just kind of done because that's it, and he does use some artistic license, obviously, like any author, but none of that's present in this film. They didn't get any of that. They kind of just got that they wanted it to be scary, and here's some close to real life depictions of those stories you remember.
This movie and those, like, you want to adapt this to me, this is a perfect movie to do a kid's version or a lesser hardcore version of VHS.
That too
is like
I'm not going to show it to my daughter at this point. I think it's too much as far as that goes. Like, I'm a little surprised it's PG-13.
I'm not even talking about that. I mean toned down, like, as in it's not going to be as hardcore as what VHS has in it. It still can be this movie. Sure. But like VHS is this perfect encapsulation of how to do an anthology movie, just like the ABCs of Death. Like, those are really smart ways. VHS's entire concept is always somebody comes upon the videos. In the first movie, it was somebody breaking into a house. They come across the videos, start watching them. You get your 3 stories. The sequel is somebody following in to find the person that got lost, or
Yeah.
There are ways that they could have easily tied this together by having the kids be read a story. You know, you can have them even be read a story by a character that was in the book, you know, have it, and then have that be the final thing that brings it all together. There are a bunch of different ways to just take those stories, which were so perfectly encapsulated, and put those onto screen exactly as they are. You know, you sure take a little license to them, but
you don't need to take much. They're
screwing. They screwed with something that didn't need to be screwed with, and it didn't work out. You know, that's what it sounds like.
Well, and the worst part is it looks like they did it with an eye towards franchise too. Like they knew.
Oh, sure.
People were going to get into this because could be for kids nowadays, but also the kids that remember this book back in the day. Like it ends on a cliffhanger, kind of like it not so much a cliffhanger. It ends with an eye towards what's next. You know, I'm going to spoil some of this movie.
Just spoil it. It doesn't matter.
This group of kids is solving the mystery. Now it sounds like Scooby-Doo. Of this girl who wrote the story, who was wronged in several different ways, and she has to approach the ghost and be like, it's not your fault. I will tell the truth and I will tell your story type thing. It's like I said, there's some good themes. Like I like that idea. There's some weight behind stories themselves in this movie, but all of the actual, like the new story in this movie, because they're trying to tell some B storylines too. Like she has her mother is dead. She has a rocky relationship with her father who's still around.
Shocker.
And the Hispanic guy in the movie is a draft dodger. And not only do none of those B stories really matter, as they spend too much time on them when all you want to see is another scary story to tell in the dark.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, the father-daughter thing is kind of dropped. Like there's no real good resolution to that other than they're friends at the end. Like they never talk about it. And the best part, the draft dodger just decides and, you know, goes to Vietnam.
All right.
Like, is that still a resolution nowadays? Can we do?
I got an idea. Who needs motivation? Just
it spends the movie, like it even shows Richard Nixon several times, and you get the feeling that they're showing you how that dude sucked, or they're hinting at a loss of innocence or something. I don't know, but that the end of that guy's storyline would be like, okay, I won't dodge the draft anymore.
Right.
It doesn't work. None of it worked. It sucked. It was a bummer. Like if you can maybe take out some of the scary stories, like I said, there's some legit tense moments. Creatures are cool. Like if you can take some of those out and watch those separate, might be fun. But it's kind of a bummer otherwise.
Sounds like a bummer.
And that's all I got.
All right.
That's all anybody has.
It's all we could do. So
that's all anybody could do on Book Club for Movies. That's bookclubformovies.com. If you want to go there, Facebook, Twitter, all that podcast at bookclubformovies.com. If you want to talk to us after watching Alita Battle Angel. So that'll be fun.
That will be fun.
Probably.
I'm looking forward to it.
From what we know.
Okay, bye.